Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my NFL Week 11 2019 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this past week, and I'm pretty much assuming for most people that do picks across YouTube and across everywhere, it was a dreadful, painful week, to say the very least. I can't remember the last time so many games, so many close games that I would have thought were going to be right or wrong came down to the last little bit or just a few plays. I think besides the Ravens-Bengals game, and maybe somebody could help me out, I don't even think all the other games last week, they were all one score, or what, I'm sorry, besides two. Yeah, besides two games, every other game yesterday and Thursday were one-score games. Every one of them except two, which I believe were the Ravens and the Bengals and the Falcons and the Saints. Every one of those other games were one-score games that just did not break my way and probably did not break in a lot of ways. It was an upset Sunday. It was an upset weekend for the ages. I don't think anybody expected the 7-1 or the 1-7 Atlanta Falcons to take on the New Orleans Saints at 7-1, who were I thought the best team in the NFL period, and just lay an absolute egg against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta was able to dominate basically from beginning to end. For the third time this year, the Saints did not put up an offensive touchdown, and that's only the third time. It's the third time this year. In the whole Sean Payton era, the Saints had only done that twice when they not giving up a touchdown. The Atlanta Falcons defense had 7 sacks entering the game. They ended up getting about 6.5 just yesterday against one of the better offensive lines in football. Kamara and Murray could not do anything, and then Michael Thomas. The only bright spot was Michael Thomas was the fastest NFL receiver to get to 400 receptions, but after that, if you can pretty much limit Michael Thomas or limit their offense, they really have nobody else that really impresses you. Jared Cook has been up and has had a down year. Dan Arnold wasn't active, and it was the stunning upset of the week, and probably the biggest upset of the entire year going on everything there. A few of the other games, if you look at the Browns and Bills. Man, the Browns, again, kudos to Nick Chubb, who I think has had a fantastic year. If you look at what they were able to do, he has this year, let's see, Nick Chubb, he has a grand total of, I'm trying to find out the yard. He has 919 yards this year, been one of the best running backs in football, one of the bright spots for this team. But besides that, the Browns offense really could not make as many big plays. You had Jarvis Landry probably be the biggest beneficiary of moving the offense. And it was just a bizarre game where, Josh Allen and the Bills played a Bills-type game. And, the Bills defense, they had 8 plays in the red zone, Cleveland did, in the Buffalo red zone. And they were able to stop them on 8 consecutive plays, including 2 pass interferences on Odell Beckham. That's just absurd, and it came down to a kick. Steven Hauschka, who has now missed 5 consecutive 50-plus yard field goals, which is the longest streak in the NFL today. He also missed a 30-yarder. Look, he's a former Ravens kicker. He was also the kicker for the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. I just think it's time to let him go because, the 50-plus yard thing, that's bad, and if he can't hit a 50-yarder, and it keeps going to be costing you games, okay, whatever, it's 50-plus. I would say 50 or under, the kicker should make anything over 50, give the kicker a little bit of a pass, but to miss a 30-yarder to possibly up 10-9, that's just inexcusable. Kudos to the Browns. Job well done. You saved some face, and you got your first home win of the year. Baker, back-to-back no-turnover games. There's a little bit of optimism, but that was brutal. The Dolphins and Colts. The Dolphins, who started out 0-7. They started out 0-7. everybody thought, oh, this is great. They're going to be tanking for Tua. Well, if you look at them now, the Dolphins now have the 4th overall pick in the draft. By winning 2 games, they basically have almost knocked themselves out of getting the number 1 overall pick. And it's just hilarious to me. Like, the Dolphins, after, everybody was going, oh, they're not tanking. Yeah, they're not. They've actually got 2 wins in a row. The worst thing was Ryan Fitzpatrick did not outplay Brian Hoyer. He just didn't screw up as much as Brian Hoyer did. Brian Hoyer had 3 interceptions in the game. The worst one coming about 4 minutes left in the game. And that was the weirdest sequence. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hit on the first down of the play. He has to go into concussion protocol. But then right after that, Josh Rosen just makes 3 straight runs. They get a 48-yard field goal from Jason Sanders. And, that's basically the end of the game. And also Brian Hoyer, that was the best image of any season. Brian Hoyer on 4th and 10, there was an 8-yard middle route to Eric Ebron, and he's clearly short of the first down. And there's an image of Brian Hoyer literally holding up his one finger, saying first down, and then you look at it and go, no, Brian, you didn't do it. So that was bizarre. And then the other one, and then the Chiefs-Titans, that was just brutal. When you get a 4th and 17... and, you make 3 runs, including that awkward 3rd down run with Mahomes sliding onto the ground. I understood why to do that, because you didn't want to stop the clock. But then you botch the field goal. The ball goes right into Colquitt's shoulder. And then Butker just, throws the ball clearly out of bounds. Like, he should have at least tried to run for a few yards instead of causing an intentional grounding penalty. And then Ryan Tannehill throwing a laser to Adam Humphries was just, the Chiefs' defense just doing what the Chiefs' defense does. And the weird thing was, it was like a 30-yard pass. It was almost like that was just clearly how it was going to end. Then you get the block kick. And by the way, the Titans player was not offside. That was a perfectly timed play from what I had seen from the slow motion. But that was just a bizarre ending, and it was just a really bad overall week. And my condolences to everybody, not just myself. And to anybody that got at least 7 games this week, I'm going to give you a round of applause. Job well done to you, because you definitely did better than a majority, I believe, of the prognosticator population, both on YouTube, amateur and professionally, across the country. So job well done to you if that happened. So to go to my records real quickly, so this week against the spread, I went 5-7, and straight up I went 4-8. Clearly, I believe this is my worst week of the entire year, one of the worst weeks I have ever had doing these sets of picks. So that equals to about 42% against the spread and 33% straight up. And now overall for the year, I am 76-60-1 against the spread, which equals about 56% against the spread. And straight up, I am 90-56-1, which equals about 61.5% straight up. After all the happiness about trying to get a bounce back week, it did not happen. And I actually ended up having my worst week. But at least I can say this. There's not hopefully that much further down to try to bounce back up this week. But honestly, with how this is going, I don't know. But so I'm going to definitely try to hope, with everything going on, with all the new stuff that I've been able to see, that I can bounce back this week to finally go up in the right direction. So for the buys this week, you have the Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans are all on buys this week. So if you have Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, if you have Saquon Barkley, if you have Daniel Jones, if you have Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett, the Seahawks defense, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, the Titans defense, Ryan Suckup. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. And a quick reminder, I am taking the San Francisco 49ers straight up tonight, but I am taking the Seattle Seahawks +6. All right, so time for my picks for each game. So this Thursday coming up, when the 5-4 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 3-6 Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns are 2.5-point favorites in this game, which is a little surprising to me. And I may regret this because I did this last week with Buffalo, even though I kind of can understand why the Cleveland Browns are favored in this game, a divisional game against Pittsburgh. I can definitely see more of that happening. But I'm going to take Pittsburgh here. I may be beating a dead horse, but I will take Pittsburgh here +2.5 and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-4 Dallas Cowboys go to the 3-6-1 or 3-5-1 Detroit Lions. The Dallas Cowboys are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Dallas here, -3, and Dallas straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-5 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 5-4 Indianapolis Colts. This game, with everything that's going on with the teams, with the Colts having no T.Y. Hilton, Jacoby Brissett, he should be back, but we don't know. And after what I saw with Brian Hoyer, this is a genuine coin flip game to me, and the return of Nick Foles for the Jaguars is significant. So I'm going to hedge my bet here in this game. I really think it's that much of a toss-up here. So I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars here, +3, but I will take the Indianapolis Colts straight up. And then the next game, when the 6-3 Buffalo Bills go to the 2-7 Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills are 6-point favorites in this game. I like the Buffalo Bills here to win straight up, but I will take the Miami Dolphins +6. Then the next game, when the 3-6 Denver Broncos go to the 7-3 Minnesota Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings are 10-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here -10, and Minnesota is straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-2 New Orleans Saints go to the 3-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New Orleans Saints are 5-point favorites in this game. I like New Orleans here -5, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-7 New York Jets in the worst toss-up game of the entire weekend, when the 2-7 New York Jets go to the 1-8 Washington Redskins, the New York Jets are 1-point favorites in this game. I like the New York Jets here -1, and the New York Jets straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-7 Atlanta Falcons go to the 5-4 Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons are 6-point underdogs in this game. I like Atlanta here +6, but I will take Carolina straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-3 Houston Texans go to the 7-2 Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up, but I will take the Houston Texans +4.5. Then the next game, when the 3-6-1 Arizona Cardinals go to the 9-0 or 8-1 San Francisco 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers are 13.5-point favorites in this game. They were 8-point favorites the last time around, just 2 weeks ago, and I took the Niners, and they could not cover then. With an additional 5.5 points, I will this time smartly take the Arizona Cardinals here, +13.5, but I will take the San Francisco 49ers straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-9 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 5-4 Oakland Raiders, the Oakland Raiders are 10-point favorites in this game. I like the Oakland Raiders here -10, and the Oakland Raiders straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-1 New England Patriots go to the 5-4 Philadelphia Eagles, the New England Patriots are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like New England here -3.5, and New England straight up. And then the Sunday night game, when the 4-5 Chicago Bears go to the 5-4 Los Angeles Rams, in a rematch of a Sunday night game right around this time of year, except this one is in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Rams are 6.5-point favorites in this game. That is way too many points from what I saw out of them yesterday with how bad that offense looked. I'm going to take the Chicago Bears here +6.5, but I am going to take the LA Rams to win straight up, but this is one of those 50-50 games, and I just genuinely don't know. But I'll take the Rams here in this instance to win straight up, and I'll take the Bears +6.5. And finally, in the Monday night game in Mexico for the second straight year, the 6-4 Kansas City Chiefs are going to the 4-6 Los Angeles Chargers. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here -4, and Kansas City straight up. All right, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Pittsburgh Steelers over the Cleveland Browns. This is one where what I've seen out of the Pittsburgh Steelers the last 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks, it's been incredibly impressive, especially on the defensive side of the football. I believe a Defensive Player of the Year candidate is Minkah Fitzpatrick. If you look at his numbers through his 7 games with the Steelers, he has 5 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns, and a couple forced fumbles and a fumble recovery. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been absolutely sensational, and I believe if the Steelers make the playoffs, he is the Defensive Player of the Year. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, They have already significantly eclipsed the turnover total that they had last year. I believe they have forced 24 turnovers this year. I do not know, or let me look it up here. I look at the Steelers right here, and I'll look up how many turnovers they had last year. Let me see. They had a grand total of, let's see, they forced 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12. They forced 15. So they've already forced 9 extra turnovers than they did all last year. TJ Watt's been sensational. Devin Bush has been fantastic. Bud Dupree's been getting a lot of pass rush. Cam Hayward was obliterating the Rams center, Brian Kelly, and then their backup center. The defense has just been sensational. And Mason Rudolph has done his job okay. Or, maybe a little above average for what they need him to do. He hasn't turned it over that many times. The only touchdown the Rams got was on the first snap of the game where DeCastro Pouncey snapped the ball right over Rudolph's head for a defensive touchdown. And I also have to give Mike Tomlin a tremendous amount of credit. Mike Tomlin is a guy that I thought genuinely going into this year with the Steelers and not possibly being in playoff contention, I thought that he was probably going to get fired, or from the Steelers' perspective, since they don't like to fire head coaches, they were just going to say, we're not going to renew Mike Tomlin's contract. But obviously, with them winning 5 of their last 6 games, they started at 0-3, now they're 5-4, and they are now clearly the 6th seed in the playoff picture. I have to give Mike Tomlin a tremendous amount of credit. I think he is one of the top head coach of the year candidates. I would, personally, I think Kyle Shanahan should get it, because after what he went through 4-12 with Garoppolo, to possibly get to 9-0 and flip that all around, I think he deserves the award this year. But if you had to get a second or third vote, I would put Mike Tomlin in either one of those slots. James Conner's been out the last couple games, and I think Edmonds, and I forget the other guy, number 40. Someone can tell me his last name in the comments, that'd be great. But I thought they had an admirable job running the ball. Deontay Johnson, Vance McDonald, Juju, they were all able to make smart plays when they had to. And I just I look at this Cleveland Browns team and go, basically, just from head coaching as well. Because look, Baker's been playing solid the last couple games. No turnovers the last 2 games from Baker. Jarvis and Odell were able to make some big plays, and I just do not believe Todd Gurley got 76 yards on this defense. And you could say, look, Todd Gurley hasn't been healthy all year. He isn't himself. That's fair. But I think they'll be able to kind of hold Chubb and Kareem Hunt to an extent. They really didn't really use Kareem Hunt really as a running back, which surprised me. But also, I just look at the history of this rivalry, and if you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers over the years, if you look at their head-to-head against the Browns, it's pretty much been a whitewash for the Browns over the last several years. I remember they said Ben Roethlisberger has won more games in Cleveland than the Browns have been able to this entire time. They have won 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have won the last 7 straight, and they've won the last 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They have won 10 of the last 12 with 1 tie. They are 10-1-1 in the last 12 meetings against the Browns. And it's one of those things where, do I think the Browns have the talent? Are they going to feel a little bit confident, beating a Bills team that everybody thought was going to be a good team, or they thought at the very least, they were going to play a tomato can in the Browns and be able to win? Sure, but I just think with how Pittsburgh's been playing, how solid that defense is, I really feel that, they're going to have another kind of hard-nosed grind game. And if it comes down to coaching and kicking, Seibert missed his first extra point, though he's still perfect on field goals. I think the Steelers are able to pull out this victory in a hard-fought, close game. I feel like for the Browns, this could be the win that basically gets them on this verge of what they did last year. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I feel like for at least the Browns, at least it gives them confidence, and it may save Freddie Kitchens' job. But if we're going into a head coaching match as well, give me Mike Tomlin every single day over Mr. Freddie Kitchens. So that's all I like. Pittsburgh here, plus 2.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Detroit Lions. This one, to me, was fairly simple. Last night was one of those games where I looked at how the Cowboys played, and I thought Dak Prescott had a sensational game. He threw for 397 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a lot of big third down conversions to Cobb and to Amari and to Witten, and he played one of his best games. Unfortunately, the Ezekiel Elliott did not help his case. He ran for, I believe, 47 yards, and they gave about a little under 70 yards from scrimmage. It was a really rough game for Zeke. But I just looked at that Viking defense or the Cowboy defense, and they got worked by Dalvin Cook, who's been the best running back in football this year, statistically. But yeah, I just felt like with Dallas that eventually it was the third down call at the end where they're at 2nd and 2. Zeke runs the ball and he gets stuffed, and then they do it again, and then he gets stuffed again. You would think on the 3rd down they would have tried to throw it, and then on the 4th down they did, but Eric Kendrick just made a better break on the ball than Zeke did at the end of that game. But I look at this game between the Cowboys and the Lions, and I say this. Everybody that picked the Detroit Lions throughout the week, I believe if we knew what we knew going into Saturday night and definitely into Sunday morning right before the game, we all would have changed our pick to the Bears. That is my opinion, because when you find out that Matthew Stafford, who had, I believe, one of the 7 most longest active starting streaks in the NFL at 136 games, misses the game because of hip and back problems, and you find out later that he has broken bones in his back, so it's very Tony Romo-esque injury here. And Jeff Driscoll starting, we were all just like, okay, that shouldn't work. Even though I will have to say, it was a 6-0 game through at least going into the half, and going into the half it was a 1-point game. And Driscoll had an opportunity, he got them within 30 yards of possibly tying the game. So, we'll take the respectable L there. But with that being said, I think with the Cowboys, they're playing a Lions team that could be playing Jeff Driscoll again. Ty Johnson left the game, so I don't know how much of a running game they will have. Do I think Driscoll can make some plays? Sure, I feel like he can make some runs. And the Cowboys secondary and pass rush has been very inconsistent compared to the Bears defense. But I just look at this game and I see Dak Prescott playing as well as he did. I feel like with the Cowboys offensive line, they should be able to push around the Detroit defensive line a bit. I know Snacks Harrison's dealing with an injury. Mike Daniels has been dealing with an injury over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if they played or not, but I just feel like with the Cowboys, with no Matt Stafford there, probably or possibly, or even a banged up Matt Stafford, I don't think the Lions are able to pull out a victory in this game. If Stafford was able to play with the Lions' history, I remember I said last week, now 8 of their 9 games have been within a score this year. But so I just kind of look at the Cowboys here as the better option in this game, just because I think they're healthier, they're a little bit motivated, they understand what the opportunity is, especially with them having to play the Patriots next week. Or I'm sorry, they're playing the Patriots. Next week in Week 12. I think that they need to be able to win this game to get the 1-game cushion over the Eagles, so that they can both eat the Patriots' loss possibly, and then just kind of go into battle at the end there. I don't think it's going to be that competitive because I see Driscoll playing. But even if Stafford plays, maybe he could make some excitement. I remember, Calvin Johnson in the 329-yard game several years ago. And the Cowboys and Lions have always just somehow, over the last few years, have been in incredible games. But I feel like with no Stafford or banged up Stafford, this is a pretty easy pick for me here in this game. So that's all I like. Dallas here, -3, and Dallas straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Man, this one is a genuine coin flip here. I just think it's because when you look at the Colts, they are 0-7 when T.Y. Hilton is inactive, which it really shows his value to this Colts organization. But I look at the Indianapolis Colts here as a team that they have one of the stronger offensive lines, and my biggest thing is I believe Jacoby should be able to come back. I think one of the reasons why they benched him against the Dolphins is they felt confident in Brian Hoyer enough that he should have been able to pull out the victory. Obviously, they were mistaken. And by the way, now Patriot quarterbacks this year, if you look at, let's see, so the Colts quarterback, or the Patriot quarterbacks, so Brady is 8-1, Brissett's 8-0, that's 16-1. Brissett is 5-3, so that's 21-4. So this means now that all Patriot quarterbacks, current and present, are 21-5 this year, which is pretty astounding. But if you look at the Indianapolis Colts here, I feel like Brissett coming back should be a big enough boost to win this game. They're going to be home as well. The Colts have routinely been able to beat Jacksonville consistently. And after what I saw out of Jacksonville, the other big thing that's why I'm leaning with the Colts here is because Gardner Minshew in the game against London threw about 50 to 55% of that game. That was a defensive struggle between both teams. And really the turning point of the game was the botched field goal that could have made it a one-score game. After that point, the Jaguars really couldn't move offensively, and Gardner Minshew ended up having 3 consecutive turnovers, which I believe cost him the job, and got the job back to Nick Foles. It was just really tough, and I believe with Marlon Mack and that offensive line, they'll be able to run on the Jags defense. Carlos Hyde was able to do it to a good amount. I looked at some of the other games. Kansas City was able to have a nice running game against them. You look at some of the other games. I feel like with Mixon made some nice moments. The only running game they really were able to stop were the Jets, but I just really feel like with the Colts, they'll be at home. They have a better offensive line and a running game, and I just think Jacoby will be able to outplay Nick Foles with the talent he has around him. And also, I'm just kind of shaky on how Nick's going to do. Nick, did okay against the Chiefs defense, and then he broke his collarbone, and this will be his first game since then. But I just think with how the Jags have been playing with Gardner, they've been able to make some, nice solid running game. They have Leonard Fournette, who's having a bounce back year this year. But so this is a real 50-50 game, and this is why I hedged my bet, taking the Jaguars +3. But I'm going to take the Colts here. I'm going to trust they're going to be able to run the ball better. I think Nick Foles is going to be a little bit shaky, and I think that Brissett coming back, he should be playing this game, will be enough to get the Colts over this victory over the Jags. It's going to be very similar to the game last year in 2018 in the home game where Bortles and Luck were basically in a back-to-back shootout. I think the Colts were able to come back and get a comeback win off that. I think it's something very similar to that. Though I do want to say, if it gets in that situation, the Jags may have the better option because Adam Vinatieri needs to retire. This man has missed a career high in field goals and extra points, and it's just like every single week now, you're almost kind of wondering, should they go for 2? Because Vinatieri is a 50-50 shot at making or missing a kick at this point. And you know what? For Adam, there's nothing to be ashamed about at this point. You're the oldest player in the league, the longest tenured kicker in the league. You are the GOAT among kickers. You don't need to play anymore unless you are just, you just can't get rid of it. You're like Jerry Rice, or you are just a money-hungry player that just wants money, and you really couldn't do any other jobs. But again, I feel like you could, start kicking academies, be an analyst, but Adam, it's time for you to go. So that's why I like Indianapolis here to win straight up, but I will take Jacksonville +3. Then the next game, the Buffalo Bills over the Miami Dolphins. This is one where, you know what? The Buffalo Bills are at 6-3. They are one of the most unappealing 6-3 teams out there. It's actually kind of like sad that they are the 5 seed because if you looked at the Steelers and the Raiders and some of these other teams, you would say, you know what, they're playing better. Or they've played better more consistently and you can trust them more. And I just feel like with this game, like it's Miami. Miami for the most part, Fitzpatrick and then they got off to a 10-0 start pretty quickly, but then the offense just sputtered. And I just feel like with, Buffalo, they just played them a couple weeks ago. They're going into Miami. I feel like, Josh Allen should be able to make some runs and make some plays. Even though Josh Allen, it's tough to watch with his consistency. He's been up and down throughout the year. He hasn't made that many mistakes, but he hasn't made, his problem over the last few games is, I believe Josh Allen, he hasn't made a lot of mistakes, but there's just too many times when you watch the Bills games and the Bills offense where if Singletary or Gore can't get a good start on the drive or can't get any push on the first down, they really can't move the ball because even though Dawson Knox had a rough game, dropping a few passes, but like Cole, like he can't get John Brown on deep routes. Beasley was the biggest receiving contributor yesterday. But I'm going to take the Bills here just because, again, I feel like with the Bills, this is just a consistent team that with Miami really didn't win that game. Indy really lost it because it was just one of those things where Fitzpatrick made less mistakes than Ryan Hoare. Ryan Fitzpatrick played a okay game for standards. It was just the fact that Brian Hoyer could not hit the broad side of the Baker's Life field house in where the Pacers play. He couldn't hit anything in Indianapolis. So I'm going to take Buffalo here. Buffalo, they've been able to win a little bit more often against the Dolphins in Miami. And I just feel like with Josh Allen's consistency, I feel like the Bills, they know what position they're in, and they see what the Steelers and Raiders are doing, and even Indy to an extent. They know that there are three teams that are in contention, for their one of their playoff spots, and I feel like they will, they should be able to pull together this one to get a victory over a Dolphin team that, again, is not tanking right and was just fortunate to play to a really bad team and a Colts team that was on a backup quarterback that doesn't even really deserve to be in the league. And by the way, the Colts paid $21 million for Brian Hoyer, so good luck with that, Indy. But honestly, over the last month, this is why I'm taking Miami +6. The Dolphins have played good football. Like, the Dolphins have played respectable football where, they were a 1-point game with the Redskins. They beat the Jets. They, looked okay against Pittsburgh, and they just beat Indy. So you look at the Dolphins the last 4 weeks and go, there's something there with Flores that, you can live with. 16-17, 21-31, 17-14, and then 2 wins. This Dolphins team over the last 4 or 5 weeks has played respectable football, and Brian Flores now has 2 wins, which should be able to allow him to keep his job. But I just think, again, Miami's playing that well. They're at home. I'll give the Dolphins on the line, but I think the Bills, knowing how desperate they are, knowing how consistent they've been, and knowing how little faith I saw in the Dolphins against the Colts team that was on the backup quarterback, that's why I'm taking the Bills to win. So that's why I like the Buffalo Bills here to win straight up, but I'll take Miami +6. The next game, the Vikings over the Denver Broncos. This is one where, honestly, I feel like with Kirk Cousins, he got a rare primetime victory. Very rare primetime victory. They've only won, I believe, two games again, and they really don't beat winning teams that often in those primetime moments. I think this was like Kirk Cousins' third win as a Viking against a above 500 team in primetime TV, and I believe this is his 8th win overall just in primetime television, just in general. So job well done to him. I look at the Vikings here, Dak Prescott shredded them offensively with his arm to all the receivers. I don't think that Brandon Allen and the Denver offense can do the same thing. I do not see that happening. I look at what the Minnesota Vikings were able to do defensively through the first few drives. They did not allow Dallas to get into the end zone. Also, Brett Maher had a bizarre and bad 50-plus yard field goal that, and that's the weird thing with Brett Maher. That, he's one of the most, he has one of the strongest legs in the league, but his accuracy just comes and goes. But I just look at Denver, they got a, big win over the Browns in a bizarre game, which I don't think anybody expected. But really, the Broncos got that win. And again, you could argue, if you look at the Broncos' 3-6 record, that should be flipped off of 3 kicks from Eddie Pinheiro, Josh Lambo, and Adam Vinatieri, 2 50-yarders, by the way, in that stretch, that they could be 6-3. And also, there was a bogus roughing the passer in the Denver game. Actually, 2 bad roughing calls for Gardner and Mitch. And then, of course, in the Colt game, that was, the bizarre heroics by Brissett to throw to, I think it was Hilton on the sideline on that 3rd down, which could have ended the game there. So this Denver team, really is not a 3-6 team. They could be easily a 6-3 team, or they play better than their record. But I just feel like with the Vikings, this is a 1:00 game at home. I think the Vikings defensive line will get pressure on Brandon Allen. If you look at what happened against Kansas City a few weeks ago, they got over 7 sacks, and it was just a brutal fest. I think Brandon Allen will kind of suffer the same fate here. And I just really feel like with the Vikings, they're on a good high, and they're playing a Broncos team that's really, at this point, just trying to just get through the year. Can they put up a fight? Sure. I feel like every time Kirk Cousins has a big game, he's always in for a letdown, or you're always somehow just lays to the competition and levels out that way. But I will take the Minnesota Vikings here -10, just because, again, I feel like the Vikings, they've just been clearly a more consistent team. Maybe Adam Thielen hopefully be back. I don't think they will need him. They'll maybe get Dotson back. They have Diggs, they have Rudolph, they have Irv, and I feel like the Vikings will be able to just move the ball consistently on a Broncos defense that at times is not going to be very good. And I just feel like with the Vikings defense, they'll be able to put too much pressure on Brandon Allen and wrap up Lindsey, and that should be able to get them the victory right there. So that's why I like Minnesota here -10, and Minnesota straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, this is one where I just feel like with the Saints, this was very Packers-Chargers-like. If not worse. I actually think this was worse because of the team they played. But I really feel with this game that the Saints, they should be able to bounce back against a Tampa team that, look, I'll put it this way. Tampa has shown you one consistent thing the entire year. They can throw and they can score on anybody. They have the offensive firepower to do it. They have just phenomenal offensive firepower. Their running game, Ronald Jones and number 44, he is that weird name I can't pronounce right off the top of my head. They've got a nice solid running game going, but that Tampa defense is awful. Kyler Murray threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and if it wasn't for, again, kind of a weird thing like what happened in the Cleveland game, Matt Gay actually missed one of the field goals that kind of changed the game. But the Bucs false started themselves, so they actually had to drive the ball back 5 yards. They got another opportunity, he made it, and they also had the end zone turnover, which was killer. And then also at the end of the game, there was just a pass interference call that you could argue should have been called, and then they could have had a chance to tie it, but it wasn't called. Even though again it was the last play. I'm always one of those things. If you're heaving it up at the end, just let the players play and see what happens. But yeah, it was just a bizarre game for the Bucs, to be able to pull out the victory. Winston turned it over a couple more times, and again, he still leads the league in turnovers at 17 this year. And I look at Tampa and said, what, job well done. You got to win where you got, a couple breaks, and you stopped the Cardinals' offense enough times to win. And I just feel like with New Orleans, I hope the Saints take a lesson from the Packers. I'll put it that way. The Saints, after getting, after the Packers got, decisive loss against the Chargers, they come into this next week and they beat a good Panther team by a whole, 8 points. It was a close game, but they were able to, get back to physical football, running the ball. Aaron Jones had 93 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think Kamara and Murray can do the same thing against the Tampa defense, and I think Drew Brees, even though he had a rough game against them last year in Tampa, that game was closer than people think. But I just feel like with the Saints, they're motivated. They know that they're better than that performance they had against the Falcons, and I do not think the Buccaneers will be able to get these Saints out of the end zone in this game. Do I think this game can be competitive? Sure, because I feel like with Tampa Bay, look, Marshawn Lattimore left the game, and I don't know what his injury status is like, but that will be something significant to watch, especially with Mike Evans possibly being the beneficiary of that. But Tampa still has one of the worst pass defenses in the league. And Kenyon Drake, and they also have kind of a run defense that's been up and down this year. And I just really feel like, again, like the Saints have a better defense, and they'll get Winston a few turnovers. And I just feel like, again, if the Saints are, one of the better teams in the NFC and a genuine Super Bowl contender, they should be able to respond from this thrashing from Atlanta and beat a Tampa team that was, they got a good win, fortunate enough to do it, but just not very good, So that's why I like New Orleans Saints here -5 and New Orleans Saints straight up. The next game, the New York Jets over the Washington Redskins. Like I said, this is the what I like to call the crappy toss-up game of the week. Nobody outside of New Jersey and the D.C. area, I think, genuinely cares about this game. But the reason why I am taking the Jets here is because I've seen the Jets, 2 of the last 4 weeks win games. the Redskins, their only win came on the Dolphins having Ryan Fitzpatrick, or Kenyon Drake drop a pass. And what I saw out of the Jets, it was pretty good. Like Sam Darnold, played an effective game. He looked, efficient. He looked much better than he did over the last few weeks. But again, it was the Giants, so how much really stock can you put into that? The Redskins have lost like 8 straight home games. Like Darnold went 19 of 30, 230 yards, a TD, and no picks. So I've seen Sam Darnold play. It's like he's been playing better than Dwayne Haskins. I think that's also the other thing too. Like I don't know who the Redskins starting quarterback's going to be. It could be Colt McCoy, or it could be Case Keenum. It could be Haskins. Probably going to be Haskins. And when I saw out of Haskins, it was just like Sam Darnold's outplayed him. That's not saying a lot. And for the Jets at this point, beating the Redskins, I think for the Jets, it would be worse to lose to the Redskins. For the Redskins, it's everything to gain, and the Jets, it's nothing to gain at all. If you beat the Redskins, bravo for the Jets. If Dwayne Haskins and that offense can beat you, when they really have no offensive weapons besides Adrian Peterson, who, is having, again, after Gruden got fired, he's finally getting more function in the offense, and you're seeing what happens. But I like the New York Jets here, just because I've seen Sam Darnold play. The Redskins are awful, and I will take the Jets and what they have talent-wise over what the Redskins have. Even though the Redskins have a very good defense, and they can get Sam Darnold into some fits. But I just feel like, again, Sam Darnold will make more plays than Haskins won't, and I feel like the Jets' defense will cause more mistakes. You have to look at Jamal Adams getting that 25-yard touchdown yesterday. That basically was the difference in the game. So that's like the New York Jets here, -1, and the New York Jets straight up. The next game, the Carolina Panthers over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one of those games that I saw Carolina, and it was one of those weird things where Kyle Allen, in his first start, knowing that he's going to be the starter for the rest of the year, he played, I thought, a respectable game. He had that one pick that got picked up by Tramon Williams, which, might have been the difference in the game. But he made some nice throws. He made some nice drive, decisions. And I was impressed with what Kyle Allen did in the snow, in Lambeau, in that performance. Christian McCaffrey had another 100-yard game and another touchdown. And I just look at this Panthers team, again, as one of those things where I think the Falcons and Saints is kind of an anomaly to me. I think for Dan Quinn and the Falcons, that was their best game. And I feel like, again, for a lot of Falcons fans, it was kind of a, weird mix that, LSU, kudos to them, by the way, beating number 3 ranked Alabama in the college game of the year. After that, the Falcons ended up, beating the Saints at home in one of the biggest upsets of the year. Or the biggest upset of the year. When you look at the Falcons, I just, Devontae Freeman's out of an injury. I think the Panthers' offensive line should be able to hold up. And I don't see the Panthers. I just see Kyle Allen doing enough with McCaffrey to win this game. It's very much to me like what they did against Tennessee. I feel like Tennessee, who has a better defense, who has a better, offensive line. They have a better running game this year. The Panthers were able to pretty much neutralize that pretty effectively, and I think with Kyle Allen, they can do the same thing. He won this game, or he ended up coming in at the end and winning this game last year before he played the Saints in Week 17. And I just look at the Panthers here, and I just say again, are they going to make the playoffs? I don't know. I feel like they've lost to the Niners, they've lost to the Packers. The surprising one they have is Houston. But they've lost to, all the top teams in the NFC, or, they lost to the Rams and the Bucs. The Bucs one they wish they might, be able to take back. But against the top teams, against the Niners, against the Packers, you've seen this Panther team play. The Niners, they got rolled over. The Packers, the Packers and Rams, they showed that, they can be competitive. But I just think with Kyle Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and those types of players, we'll be able to make more plays to win this game. Do I think Atlanta has a chance? Sure, because look, they're on a huge high right now. They basically got the Dan Quinn doubters to quell up. But I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers here. They're at home. They've been playing more consistent. I think Kyle Allen makes more plays in the Falcons defense than I expect Ryan to against the Panthers defense. And also with no Devontae Freeman, I'm going to have a running game. And I just feel like, again, if you double-team Julio, no other Falcon receiver besides Hooper this year really made that much of an impact. And I think that'll be the difference in the game. So that's like the Carolina Panthers here straight up, but I'll take the Atlanta Falcons +6. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Houston Texans. This is my favorite game of the week. This is going to be a sensational game with two MVP level quarterbacks in Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson playing. To me, look, I'm going to give Lamar Jackson a lot of credit. He's I believe, only the second or third quarterback in NFL history to have two perfect passer rating games. Yes, they were against a 2-win Dolphin team and a winless Bengals team, but still, that is phenomenal. And he had the run of the year when he out-juked Nick Vigil on that 47-yard touchdown scramble. And it just, to me, this game, it's so hard because I thought the Jags, back in London 2 weeks ago, I thought they were going to beat the Texans because the Texans' defense has been banged up by their secondary. They didn't have Will Fuller. They didn't have Lonnie Johnson. They didn't have Bradley Roby. I thought they were able to shut down the running game. And they were able to go down and blow them out by the end. And I look at Deshaun Watson, and he is very much, I think, the AFC version of Russell Wilson. It doesn't matter who he has. If he's able to just stand in the pocket and spin around and make throws, it's that much of a difference. But I feel like in this game, the difference to me is I feel like that the Ravens offense or the Ravens defense is more prepared to play Deshaun than I believe the Texans defense is prepared to play with Lamar Jackson. Because the Texans really do not have that much of a pass rush right now. JJ's gone. If we can double team Whitney Merciless, I don't think Lamar, can make that many plays. Because honestly, both quarterbacks, that's a draw. Honestly, that is a draw to where it's like, well, the Ravens have never played a guy like Deshaun Watson. Yeah, they have. They played Lamar Jackson, who I think is very similar to Deshaun in some ways. I think Deshaun has more talent, and Deshaun may have a better pure arm, but I think Lamar is more dynamic as a runner and a playmaker compared to Deshaun. So if you cancel that out, you can give the Texans the receiving core, but the Ravens have the better tight ends, we have the better kickers, and we have the healthier defense. I feel like of our secondary with Jimmy, Brandon, Marcus, and all that, we have way more healthier corners than what the Texans do right now. And even though the Texans may have better receiving options, I feel like our receiving options should be able to, with Andrews, with Hurst, with Boyle, with Brown, with Willie Snead possibly making some plays. I feel like we should be able to move the ball more effectively against the Texans than the Texans will against the Ravens defense. Because the Ravens defense over the last few weeks has played pretty solid football. I know it's the Bengals, but look, we held the Seahawks to 16 points. We held New England to 20. We held Cincinnati to 13. So it's a very, good defensive run we're going on. And I just feel like, again, the Lamar-Deshaun battle, it's really not, they're going to be that different for either quarterback. It's not. But I feel, again, so at that point, it just goes down to me. I feel like we've held the ball longer. We have more depth at running back. We have better kickers. And I just feel like, again, the home field advantage. The last time the Texans, I can't remember the last time the Texans beat us at home, or if they have ever beaten us at home. Somebody... very rarely does Houston come into Baltimore and win this game. Do I think Houston has a chance to win this game? Absolutely. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens here. Healthier defensively, stronger running game, stronger quarterback playmaking, and just a better overall team. And I will take John Harbaugh and his staff against Bill O'Brien's every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So that's why I like the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up, but I'll take the Houston Texans plus 4.5. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Arizona Cardinals. This one to me was just fairly simple of just, look, Arizona just lost to Tampa. Arizona just lost to Tampa. And it's something where, look, I think San Francisco, if they win or lose against Seattle, they just played this Arizona team just 2 weeks ago. They beat them at home. I think they beat them, San Francisco beat them now on Arizona on the road. I do want to give Kyler Murray some props. He became the first quarterback. Let me see here. He became the first quarterback to... he joins Deshaun Watson, Dante Culpepper, and Cam Newton as the only player since 1950 with 2,500 passing yards and 250 rushing yards in their first 10 games. Christian Kirk had his first 3 touchdowns of the year. Even though, again, Tampa defense isn't that great. They actually had to sit Vernon Hargreaves, Arians said, due to lack of hustle. So I think the Cardinals, look, they've been a good team, and they've been a great offense, and they have a lot of potential, especially with Kenyon Drake running the ball and the Cardinals defense trying to make some plays. But you're playing a Niner team right now that just, again, has just been the best in the league. They're at home now for the next 3 games. And I think the Niners will just kind of do the same thing what they did to Arizona, if not worse. But I feel like the bettors have disrespected Arizona by upping the point differential to five extra points. If they were able to cover 8 points at home, I feel like they should be able to cover 13.5 on the road. It could be an interesting game, depending on what happens, especially if Seattle beats them. You could definitely look at Arizona possibly playing spoiler, but I don't see that happening this week next week against a Niner team that's just been thoroughly, consistently better. And Patrick Peterson went down with an injury, and I just think that might be the end as well. So that's why the San Francisco 49ers should win straight up. I'll take Arizona plus 13.5. The next game, the Oakland Raiders over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one where I'm taking the Oakland Raiders because they've just been the better team. Like, if you look at the Oakland Raiders at 5-4, one of, the biggest turnarounds, them and the Pittsburgh Steelers, nobody expected these two teams in the playoffs. Everybody was laughing at them. Everybody was saying how bad they were. And look at them now, the 6 and 7 seeds, respectively, in the AFC West, or in the AFC playoff picture. Oakland is now just, remember, 1 game behind the Kansas City Chiefs for first place in the AFC West. And actually, if you think about it, with the Chiefs having a bye, the Raiders and Chiefs going into Week 13 when they play each other next, that could be a AFC West division title game on the line in Kansas City. So I do want to give the Raiders a lot of credit for that. Their secondary has been banged up horribly, and they just lost Carl Joseph to an ankle injury at the end of the game. But I just feel like with the Raiders, look, Josh Jacobs is the offensive rookie of the year, and nobody's going to change my mind otherwise. He's been having a sensational year. And after what you saw of what happened against the Bengals, the Raiders can basically do the same thing. Ryan Finley starting, he was horrible. He had 2 defensive touchdowns go against him. And just the Bengals are just kind of a mess right now. A.J. Green probably won't play, so they're not going to have to worry about Mike Williams or Keenan Allen or any kind of big offensive threat moving the ball down the field. If you want to say Tyler Boyd and Arden Tate can be effective weapons, sure. But you're looking at a Raider team that just kind of been on a roll. And also, just a fun fact, most of those Raiders were on the team last year when Jeff Driscoll, the starting quarterback for the Lions right now, is got his only career win against the Raiders. So I would, if I'm John Gruden, I use that as a lot of motivation to motivate this Raider team to win a 3rd straight game and get to 6-4. And again, as weird as this is, I think for Zach Taylor, it might be time for him to go. I don't know if he's going to win. I don't think he will win a game this year. And if you're 0-16, especially with how the Bengals have played, I'll put it that way. It's not like they've done the Dolphins where they've gotten blown out every single week of the year. They got blown out yesterday, but I guess that was a much better team. But that's the problem I have with the Bengals. It's not 16 consecutive blowouts. They could have beat Seattle. They could have beaten the Cardinals. They could have beaten Buffalo. Like, there have been 3 or 4 games where Zach Taylor's team had a chance to win. And shout out to Tim Brasher, but I'm sorry. If Zach Taylor goes 0-16, you have to fire him. You have to. Just because you needed to have 16 blowouts. If you're going to tank, you need to show. You need to play like you did against Baltimore. Show that you just don't have the talent to win. If you're, look, they've had games against Seattle, Buffalo, and Arizona where they had genuine chances to win or in games, but they couldn't do it. But I'm going to take Oakland here. It's a better team. Banged up. Finley's second start. Revenge from last year. It's kind of a nice, easy recipe for the Raiders to get a victory. So that's like the Oakland Raiders are -10 and the Oakland Raiders straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots over the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, this is a rematch from Super Bowl 52. Philadelphia fans are motivated. They're excited. They are now tied with the Cowboys in record sense for first place in the NFC East. The only reason why the Cowboys are in first is because they beat them head-to-head. And this is a Patriots team that routinely, coming off a bye, usually wins pretty consistently. And again, after what I saw out of the Patriots, I don't know. Because I feel like with the Eagles' offense, they have offensive talent. They have a running game that can be effective. They have an offensive line that can do similar things to Baltimore's. But the biggest reason why I'm taking the Patriots here is because it's Belichick coming off a bye versus Doug Peterson. Also, Deshaun Jackson has had court surgery, so he's going to be out for the year. And I feel like, again, the Patriots, in responses like this, they usually respond very well to losses. Very rarely do they lose back-to-back games. It's only happened, I believe, like 4 or 5 times over the last 6 or 7 years. And it's just something where, again, I think Philadelphia, could they put up a fight? Sure. I feel like Philadelphia, they have talent, they have a quarterback, they have an offense, they have a talent system that is much better than anything that New England has played besides Baltimore's. But I just think, again, with the Patriots, this is a game where they basically have been able to routinely win most often against the Eagles. The last time they played them, they did lose to Sam Bradford 35-27 in the 3 turnover touchdown game, or the 3 non-offensive touchdown game. But I'm going to take the Patriots here. Rested team, motivated team. And I think with the Eagles, look, could the Eagles win, I'd be surprised. A little bit, sure. But I think the Patriots, they're just more coached. They're motivated, and they'll take it out on the Eagles. And also revenge for the Super Bowl in this game to get them the victory. So that's why I'm doing the Patriots here, -3.5, and New England Patriots straight up. Finally, last 2 games, the Rams over the Bears. This is literally me, like, this game is going to be an old school or an ugly offensive game for the ages. The only reason why I'm taking the Rams here is that I believe Jared Goff will make less mistakes than Mitch Trubisky. Jared Goff will make less mistakes than Mitch Trubisky. This isn't even a game about skill, okay? Because Jared Goff threw 2 picks and had a fumble yesterday. He has had like 9 picks. He's had like 17 TDs and 25 turnovers. They're 10-7 the last 17 games from the Mexico City game. But it's just something where, look, the Rams are motivated from last year, where they lost that game 15-6 against the Bears. The only touchdown offensively scored was with the touchdown to Bradley Soul. Yeah, that was him. And I look at the Rams here and just go, the Bears, they're coming into LA. They'll be motivated, but I just feel like, again, the only reason why the Rams win this game is Mitch Trubisky makes more bad plays than Jared Goff does. That's it. This is not going to be a pretty game for Jared Goff. It's not going to be a pretty game for Trubisky. It just basically, Trubisky's going to just be more flustered than Goff. And that'll be it. That'll be the difference in the game. Because if the Rams lose to the Bears, then you basically can just pack the season in, or, even now and say, look, we have huge problems on our hands moving forward, if that happens. But that's why I like the LA Rams here to win straight up, but I'll take the Bears +6.5, because I think it's going to be that low scoring of a game. And finally, the Chiefs over the Chargers. This is one where, look, I think the Chargers, they'll do what the Chargers have always done this year, pretty much. They will put up a good fight against a Chief team, that has a horrible defense. They really can't stop anybody. But I feel like with the Chiefs, Mahomes will be motivated from last year to put up a good game against Mexico, against the Los Angeles team. And I just think, again, who am I going to trust more to choke a game, the Chiefs or the Chargers? In this instance, I will take the Chargers to choke this game more than the Chiefs will. Could I see the Chiefs choking this game away? Absolutely. They've done it over the last, couple weeks. They've had some pretty awful games. But I'm going to take the Chiefs here. Just better talent, a little bit more motivated, and they're leading in the division. And I feel like with the Chargers, they've just kind of, at this point, accepted what they are and how bad they are. And, that's that. And, Rivers, I think they'll get a turnover on Rivers. And I just feel like, again, the Chiefs will just kind of out-physical the Chargers, and they'll make one more play that the Chargers cannot, and they'll win this game. So that's all I Kansas City are -4, and Kansas City straight up. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please let me know if you have any differences or just any thoughts or on any of the picks I made. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Just see a lot of great guys and gals like Gioknows, Halfmoon Picks, Bridgewater's Finest, the Blind Canadian Cat, Redzone Rosano, the Electric Football Show, all those guys and gals, all those Andrew Warren, all their channels are in my description, so please check them out to see, what their picks are and what, and how they match up with them. And that is it. So until next week, good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. I hope all of us will have a much better week than most of us had this week. And until next week for my Week 12 predictions, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.